Right. His Excellency is here. This is Dina Mufti. Seed, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. A big deal, of course, for East Africa. For the longest time ever, we wondered if at all there's going to be a happy medium between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Did it have to take a young man, of course, looking at Abiy and his age at 41 to, try and break this particular stalemate, try and break this particular Gordian knot?
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank your media to have me as the guest.
Yes.
And dear colleague panelists as well for being with this show. It's true, this is an event that we are celebrating. We are still in celebratory mood.
Yes.
It's something long overdue. It's something that should have happened earlier on, though it needs someone like our current Prime Minister to break the ice.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so in light of this, we want also we have our panelists with us as well, and I would love also to introduce to you Professor Naomi Damba, who is the Vice Chancellor of KCA University, also is an expert on defense and foreign policy. Also we have with us Erastus Omoncha. Ambassador Erastus Omoncha is the former Deputy Chair of the African Union. We do have with us Dr. Mustafa Yusuf Ali, who is a conflict resolution expert and also a national security expert as well. Also, we do have with us Dr. Emmanuel Kisiangani, who is a lecturer, Institute of Diplomacy and of course International Studies at the University of Nairobi. We have with us as well Dr. Peter Bierajak, who is a senior advisor at the International Center for International Center Growth in South Sudan, and also he's the chair of South Sudan Young Leadership Forum. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, so we have Ambassador with us, and this is a big breakthrough that has happened in Ethiopia. Just recently we saw also there were blasts that happened in Ethiopia, and the Prime Minister immediately laid blame on the anti-peace forces, who is referring to what is their agenda, the anti-peace forces in South Sudan. Let's just begin from the extreme end with Dr. Bierajak. A big breakthrough for South Sudan, isn't it? And not South Sudan, but Ethiopia, I should say.
No, absolutely.
And Eritrea.
This is a very big breakthrough for Ethiopia and Eritrea, and I must congratulate the ambassador for very good news. We have gone for a very long time in this region without something to be proud of and without something to smile. And for many of us, the independence of Eritrea and how immediately afterward the war broke out between the two countries, it's one of those things that we remember because it was one of those difficult periods within the experience of the entire region. It was also around the time when the war in Congo was going on. So it was a very difficult moment, but absolutely wonderful step. I couldn't agree more with you. It could not have taken anybody else other than the person of the caliber of Dr. Abiy Mohammed and Dr. Abiy Ahmed. And because of that, we must congratulate Haile Mariam, because it took Haile Mariam making the brave decision that he made, that he is going to allow a transition and allow a different generation that could reimagine a different future for Ethiopia. And that step is what made it possible for everything that we are going through now to be happening. And it's just amazing to watch what he has been able to do. And we hope that these relations will continue, and it will set example on how we, even in South Sudan, relate to Khartoum. I'm sure you have been following these outrageous negotiations in Khartoum, with Khartoum government going to the extent of proposing to bring its own army to come and protect our oil fields. Now contrast that with what Ethiopia is doing, which is telling Eritrea that they are going to withdraw from this border disputed town. Something like Abyei, in our case, where Omar al-Bashir is still occupying Abyei, and he's looking for more. But here in the case of true leadership of Dr. Ahmed, saying that we are going to withdraw from your territory and allow a new beginning to emerge, something really to celebrate, and I must congratulate you and the Prime Minister.
All right, thank you. Maybe we can hear also from Ambassador Erastus Omoncha. The AU, for the longest time also did not manage to, broke a peace between Eritrea and Ethiopia, and it had to take Abiy himself to do it. So do you think also maybe the institution did not really have the wherewithal, or could I call it the political will, or it had to take the two countries, to sort out, their own issues aside from the AU?
Well, Thank you, Debarl, and may I salute my good brother. I have known him for quite some time. He was ambassador of Ethiopia to Zambia and Zimbabwe at the time when I was Secretary General of Commerce.
Oh, you guys go way back.
So I've known him for a long time. And it happened during the time, this difficult time. So I'm so refreshing to see him. And of course, I lived in Ethiopia. He was a government spokesperson, so I've known him very well. You prefixed your question by saying the AU failed to do much on this for a long time. Let me begin by telling you that there was what is known as the Eritrean Peace Accord, which was agreed in the year 2000. And after that peace accord, and all the parties there, African Union and the rest, were involved in that, in bringing that. That's why it was called the Eritrean Peace Accord. The two parties could not agree. They chose then, of course, also to go to International Court of Justice to determine as to whether the boundary was really rightly agreed to. And of course, the International Court of Justice gave a determination on the matter. But implementation became a problem. And implementation, of course, I can assure you that in every AU summit, there was always an item on Ethiopia-Eritrea. And it was never an easy matter for all these years. And that's why you had the ambassador say, this matter should have been solved a long time back. Of course, there had to be patience, there had to be understanding, and they allowed the parties to come to that understanding that peace between the two countries was, it was a win-win situation. Having said that, I couldn't agree more with what Peter was saying, that we have a new Prime Minister who has really brought in fresh air. It is not just the agreement that that now we have between Eritrea and Ethiopia, but if you look at it, even internally, I mean, look at the number of prisoners that have been set free, look at what is doing in the economy and the rest. And I've said here before that Africa should really support and pray for, and of course, I mean, when you have a situation like this, not everybody is going to be on board, but I can see he knows the terrain very well. He comes from intelligence.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so let's pray for him as he moves forward.
All right. Oh, I just want you also to, if you have questions for the ambassador, not to really suggest about this particular peace process. If you have pertinent questions, I think that will be ideal as well. But Ambassador, back to you. Can you tell us how much of concessions are you willing, to actually give to Eritrea to create a sustainable peace? First of all, can we talk about these concessions? First of all, we can see the open telephone lines right away. We can see also the flights from Ethiopia to Eritrea. That has been also been restored. And what sort of concessions other than this do we have? And many analysts are saying this is not a tangible, concrete peace. How can we sustain it for perpetuity?
Well, as has been very well articulated by my dear brother, Commissioner Mwencha, this rapprochement between the two countries is part and parcel of the entire transformation process going on in the country. And in fact, it's not a singly isolated incident. It's part and parcel of the, we can call it revolutionary process, transformatory process that's going on in the country. With regard to the specific issues of what concessions we are giving them, this is actually, again, I will like to reiterate what had been said by dear colleague Commissioner. This is a win-win situation. It's a matter of giving and taking. This is something that we could have done it a long time ago. This is something that the international community has been wishing, including the African Union.
Yes.
And though at the end of the day it requires two partners, that means Eritrea and Ethiopia, to come to terms. It's not about giving, even the contentious issues of the border has not been an issue during the interaction between the two leaders. They are talking about bigger things, bigger issues, about integrating both countries, about coming together. because after all, these are the same people. This is what had been in the hearts and minds of our people for years, something that we have suppressed as leaders and we couldn't acknowledge. The time has come to acknowledge it and to reckon with the fact that these two people, they need each other.
They need each other.
Yes.
Right. Let's get back to Dr. Mustafa on this as well. Dr. Mustafa, good morning. You have a question for Ambassador, please.
Well, not exactly a question, but Debarl, just to note that that particular deal is a breakthrough, not just for Ethiopia and Eritrea, but indeed for the entire region. We've always been receiving and seeing very gloomy situations. South Sudan embroiled in a civil war, relations between North and South Sudan in very bad shape. Somalia teetering back and forth, Burundi, DRC. Now, when you see such a step taken between Eritrea and Ethiopia after 2 decades of antagonistic relationship, is something that is good, and I want to again join my colleagues in congratulating Ethiopia, the President Abiy Ahmed, and a very fine ambassador here, Dina Mufti, Seed, for what is going on in between Ethiopia and Eritrea, and perhaps a lesson for Kenya, Debarl. Meles Zenawi and Afewerki could not do it.
Yes.
They share the same tribe. They are both Tigrayans, fought in the bush together to remove a dictatorship, but they couldn't really, move the full hog to bring peace between the 2 countries, meaning that, or rather showing to, or rather our politicians should learn from that, that you do not need to belong to one tribe in order to move a country or countries or institutions forward. That Abiy is not a Tigrayan, he's an Oromo, isn't it, I think. And he's been able to embrace, and he's actually taking leadership, not just in Ethiopia, but in the region. The kind of work that he's done between, rather trying to engage Salva Kiir and Riek Machar, his character and demeanor is that one young man who can bring peace not just in Ethiopia and between Ethiopians and Eritreans, but in the entire region. And it's very important that leadership in the region, in particular we've been talking about South Sudanese, but leadership goes to the younger generation. The 2 leaders in South Sudan do not have to continue messing that country and putting it where it is today. And I hope that people like Abiy Ahmed are going to help the region, and that the leaders in the region are going to emulate what Abiy Ahmed is doing in Ethiopia and between Ethiopia and Eritrea.
All right. And of course, also momentarily, we'll be looking at the generational exit in South Sudan. Is it also a providential time that, yes, we should have a young, fresh blood coming to fore as far as leadership is concerned? Maybe they have a different paradigm shift, and what we have maybe also in South Sudan is a paradigm, what do they call it? Paradigm paralysis. Yeah, there's no shift because of this old Kutsu who really wants to just hang on to power, even if it's hanging on power by the fingernails as well, right? Do we need people who have a different thought view on what leadership is all about? Let's hear from Professor Noami Dama briefly.
Debarl, this is very good news indeed. I once had a roommate in America, undergraduate program called Mesfin. Mesfin is Ethiopian, was dating an Eritrean girl. The wedding was set, and within a very short time the wedding was called off because Ethiopia and Eritrean break up, and all our friends disintegrated. So it calls for a special person, it calls for a commitment, it calls for selflessness that Prime Minister Mohammed has been able to demonstrate and to bring these people together. Every time a gun is fired in Africa, it's not for any good, it's for destruction, and we is not defending the continent of Africa. And as Mustafa clearly enumerated, the moment the gun is silent, we begin to think about development. So congratulations to Ethiopian and Eritrean people.
All right. Any question for Ambassador from you?
Yes, I have a question, Ambassador.
Could we hear from Dr. Emmanuel before we come to you, please? Dr. Emmanuel.
Yeah, let me be brief. I think I should make a statement which could sound alarmist. I think the Prime Minister of Ethiopia deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. Looking at within 3 months what he has done, both internally in terms of regional geopolitics, I think this is profound. In terms of questions, I just wanted to, from the ambassador, to understand, like you mentioned at the beginning, there could be people who probably are against what he's doing, what we call, those we call spoilers. So just to understand, what will be the motivation, given what is happening in terms of reforms? What will be the motivation? What is it that they stand to lose that they oppose what he's doing, especially in the context that recently we saw that explosion, which some people associated, I don't know if it is true or not, to some of these spoilers. So what will motivate people to oppose what he's doing?
Well, though I'm not aware of the concrete motivations of the people who may try to obstruct this process, it's obvious that whenever you make such a big move, there are always obstacles, and it's actually natural. Maybe this has to do a lot with what the Prime Minister is doing. He demystified power, and he was talking about power only in the service of the people's interest. And there are forces that have been threatened. These forces are forces that have alliance in one way or another with corruption. These are forces that have a lot to do with malpractices, maladministrations. These are the forces that are threatened. They don't represent the majority of the Ethiopian people. The wave, as you have seen it in all rallies that have been taking place in that country, and even abroad among Ethiopians, including Ethiopians living in Nairobi, is that there is overall consensus, support, of outpouring support for the Prime Minister. Though these are the minorities who felt threatened because they may lose some powers, that ill-gotten powers, ill-gotten wealth. And these are the only forces that perhaps could be taken as obstacles. Otherwise, these are insignificant. Because what the Prime Minister is doing is actually, this is an idea that time has come for, and no one can stop it. This is social dynamism that is there, that is moving, and it's very difficult to stop this titanic popular force moving across the region. To perhaps one thing I would like to mention by taking this opportunity, that his interest is not only to bring Ethiopia together, as I have already said it clearly. He has the same heart for bringing the region together. This is what he was mentioning when he met the Kenya leadership here. This is his proposal to the Somali leadership. He was a bit bold in the sense that he proposed immediate economic integration with Somalia when he visited Somalia. This is what he suggested to President Formaggio, which had been very well taken. This is what he's trying to do with South Sudanese. So this is a man with a big heart and has popular support as well. And he is demystifying politics, and there are forces that do not like that. There are forces that would like to mystify things, and he wants politics only to be in the service of the people.
All right.
Cutting terms, widening political space, releasing all these so-called political prisoners. He said there cannot be political opponents. He said only political rivalries. I think the man is going in the right directions, and this is what is happening.
All right, so you had a question for him.
Yeah, just a question for you, Ambassador. One of the tools that the government of Eritrea has been using to rule its people is this boogeyman, Ethiopia, using this tension that have existed between the two countries to really impose a near totalitarian control on its population. And now that this big thing is going out of the way, how do you imagine this having impact internally inside Eritrea? And then again, on what you said about Abiy, he presents this image of a man that kind of like symbolizing the maturity of Ethiopia as a state that is now willing to look outside and shape the regions and possibly even shape the direction of the continent. So how do you see this? It's great that this opening up is going, but how will it affect how Eritrean government has been ruling the country. There has been no elections for the more than 20 years that the country has been independent. So how do you see this going forward?
Well, I'm not sure if it's appropriate for me to foresee or speculate how it's going to impact Eritrea. But all I want to say is this will be to the interest of the Eritrean people as well. Because as we speak now, there are a lot of Eritrean families coming to Ethiopia. The airlines is going to fly back to Eritrea next week on Wednesday. And yesterday there is a news that all tickets are sold. They're thinking about having second flight. And there is a kind of family union which you cannot stop. And it is in the heart of the Eritrean people also. This is what the Eritreans have demonstrated during the reception of the Prime Minister in 3 years ago, 3 days ago in Zamara. Hopefully it will affect Eritrean people positively, it will affect the region positively, it will have a very positive impact. Definitely there are people who will lose from this.
Ambassador, I want just maybe to take you back to the recent peace deal or the trying of peace brokering in Sudan, which was orchestrated by Prime Minister. First of all, people are saying, that Prime Minister Abiy was actually punching above his weight. Him also taking this particular process to Sudan was ill-advised, because also we know that al-Bashir himself, he's a man who's under warrant of arrest and wanted by the ICC. So it was a sort of an oxymoron that actually you're going to broker peace in Sudan, and yet a man here is wanted by the ICC because of crime against humanity. What would be your take on that?
Well, I think the problem in South Sudan, which had been there unfortunately for years, I think it needs, I think the vital solution comes from the South Sudanese themselves. Whatever the regional powers play, including
but the gesture of the Prime Minister himself, I mean the gesture of the Prime Minister Abiy himself.
Yeah, he was trying his level best. Actually, this is a process that had been started before him, and actually he within that process as well. And this is an IGAD process actually being pushed by the regional IGAD members. But the problem still is the fact that I think the solution lies in the hands of the Sudanese themselves, South Sudanese. Maybe whatever role the regional powers play, for me is secondary, and it cannot be decisive.
It can be decisive.
Though it has an impact.
It has an impact.
I think my advice to the South Sudanese politicians, if I may not be the proper person to advise, is to take responsibility into their hands. Instead of looking to north, south, or east, I think this problem squarely lies with them themselves. As the South Sudanese, that should take responsibilities, because after all, South Sudan is their country.
All right, you have any question for the ambassador?
Maybe just a comment. Well, you just said that the Prime Minister was punching above his weight. I think the ambassador said it very clearly that this has been an IGAD process. For the peace in South Sudan, IGAD is actually the guarantor of that peace. I mean, the African Union is a guarantor, but IGAD is in the front line of that. And Ethiopia is chairing IGAD, I guess up to now, as far as I know.
Yes.
And so he was also playing his role as the chairman of IGAD. But beyond that, it is not just that he was playing his role, but you can see he's a peacemaker internally and externally. He's had to meet with Egypt, is bringing this. And of course, bearing in his mind, as he said, Ethiopia is a country with great potential. Only last week they started exporting. They are ready now to export oil. And Ethiopia, with a population of almost 100 million people, you can imagine, and the kind of infrastructure project they have started. Look at the rail that they have done internally. They're also producing energy. They want this energy to be a regional issue. So Ethiopia is set to see the region that is addressing economic, and not as Noah was saying early on, that guns is just to destroy ourselves. In fact, there is a move now, even among particularly the church group in Africa now, saying, can we come to a point that we say, let's have no armies, let's have no war, let's silence war, because then Africa can come out of this poverty. Because the amount of money we're spending in war is horrendous.
It's horrendous. Right. And Abiy emerged from the ruling party amid this, of course, disarray that was happening in Ethiopia. And his message was markedly different. He spoke the language of the people and tapped into the society's aspirations and fears. And while it was expected that he will be a safe pair of hands for ordinary people as well as a ruling elite, nobody expected him to be as direct and decisive as he has turned out to be in his reforms efforts. And this also has not really made some quarters very happy. He talks about these forces, these forces that he calls the anti-peace forces. Do you have any inkling what this anti-peace forces is all about? Because I think this will be a tripping wire along the way, as far as it's trying to, have a concisive or a decisive effort to make sure that everything or that chasm that was there in Ethiopia is trying to be bridged. There are people who are particularly intent on frustrating his efforts. The anti-peace forces, who are they? Do you know?
Well, it is very difficult to. These are not organizations.
Yes.
These are not particular communities in Ethiopia.
Yes.
These are individuals misguided who had been benefiting unlawfully. These are individuals who have been committing a lot of crimes in that country. These are individuals who lose from the reform process in the country. What's wrong in widening political space of that country? What's wrong in bringing political reform of that country?
Right.
What's wrong in giving justice to the people who lost justice for years? What's wrong in engaging everybody, in bringing everybody forward, in addressing issues, socio-economic hurdles that have been there in society for years? These are the people who do not like this, and these are few individuals. And actually, these are the losers. These are people who are not on the side of history.
Right.
These are the losing people, and they are insignificant. As I have already said, they are destined to lose.
Okay. Any last one from our panelist? I can see Kisiangani is looking so forlorn, and this morning you need some cup of tea, or yeah.
I'm doing well. Perhaps a last word to the ambassador. When you embark on a course of reforms, it creates expectations. So I'm just concerned because within 3 months he's done some profound work, and people expect more. So how are there any frameworks? Is there any tool to manage these expectations? Because people will always be expecting you to do something new, something different, and it can be quite demanding. So, how, in your opinion, do you think the Prime Minister will manage these expectations?
You are right. There is high expectations. There are a lot of things that he should address. So far, the success is that in few months he has succeeded to create consensus and to bring the people behind him. This is a huge success in the history of that country. Creating the consensus, creating the momentum, and that itself can translate itself into delivering. This is a delivery machine itself, because if there is a goodwill on the part of the people, if there is understanding between the leaders and the people who are led, definitely he will deliver on most of the promises he has done, he has given. Though there are some limitations. As developing countries, there are things that you may not immediately deliver. But there is an understanding on the part of the people as to what the government can do. Right. There is no mystifications. It's not, you don't play hide and bound. You just tell the people that you can do this, you cannot do this. And that is, I think, the perfect thing he has created.
All right. Maybe we can take the last one from Dr. Mustafa.
Yeah, Debarl, I think to just conclude about the Ethiopia-Eritrea, the one country to watch is Ethiopia, with a huge population, almost twice the size of Kenya. It's a huge market. It's a huge market, particularly for Kenya, and for opening up the trading routes and between the two peoples of Ethiopia and Kenya. And Ambassador, for the last 2 weeks, when I was passing through the airport, I met many Ethiopians, and they asked me whether I'm the elder brother to Abiy Ahmed.
You look like
and one of them asked me, where are your bodyguards? You don't fear being assassinated after that. And Ambassador, we've been friends for a long time. You actually forgot to invite me when he came to Kenya. So I hope when he's coming to Kenya next, we are going to meet with him.
Definitely we'll meet him.
Thank you. But Ambassador, you must agree, he's not even a spitting image of the Prime Minister. He just wants to make sure that he's closer to Ethiopia and take advantage of what we have in the show this morning. But as we're winding up also, Ambassador, the message of that enchantment that we have from the Prime Minister, yes. Medmemer. Is it Medmeran? Yeah. Togetherness. To add up. Yep. Yeah. Could you tell us, this is actually his rallying call. Is like the Yes You Can with President Obama. This is Medmemer.
Yeah, he's talking about uniting, about being together.
Being together.
Medmemer means plus, just being together, coming together, instead of everybody getting split, getting disunited. You know, he's talking about unity.
He's talking about
unity of all sorts of people. You know, he irrespective of religion, culture, language. That is why he's championing. He's championing even African regional integrations. That is what he was suggesting boldly to all these regional leaders. He was telling them, let's come together. That's all. What makes us different?
Right.
The boundaries are colonial. That's what he was saying. Though we respect what our forefathers have done,
yes,
as to respect in the current boundaries.
My director, Diana, she's on my case. Professor Naomi Damba, you have a question very briefly.
The point I want and the message that I want to send, shaking hands, symbolism is wonderful. But fundamentally, the point you are driving home, Debarl,
yes,
is how do you address the issues of millions of people who are isolated, who are in poverty, who need to be brought to bear. That is the big question.
That is a big question. And of course, we want to thank you, Ambassador, for coming through this morning to tell us about this particular developing story of Eritrea and Ethiopia.